In the late 1930s, the world didn't just stumble into its second global war. It was pushed, deliberately. In this explainer, we're going to trace the precise, calculated steps that forged a terrifying alliance and literally set the world on fire. Let's get into it. So, how does something this catastrophic actually happen? It's the big question, isn't it? How does the completely unthinkable become a reality for an entire generation? Well, here's the thing. It's almost never a single event. It's more like a chain reaction, a series of dominoes, each one tipping over the next, all pushed by ambition, ideology, and just plain fear. So let's follow that chain, domino by domino. All right, first things first, we have to understand the world where all of this went down. The ground was already unstable, still shaking from the last Great War, and it was the perfect fertile ground for conflict. You really had a perfect storm brewing from these four factors. First, you've got this deep, simmering resentment in places like Germany over the super harsh Treaty of Versailles. Then, bam, the Great Depression hits and just shatters economies everywhere, making people desperate. That desperation, well, it flung the door wide open for powerful, authoritarian leaders who promised easy answers. And the whole time, the one group that was supposed to keep the peace, the League of Nations, was proving to be completely useless. So into this total chaos, a few key players step onto the stage. Nations that saw all this instability, not as a crisis, but as a golden opportunity. And this is where a truly dangerous alliance starts to take shape. We're talking about Germany, Italy, and Japan. Now, at first glance, they seem worlds apart, right? But they were all united by this core set of beliefs. They hated democracy, they glorified military power, and they had this burning desire to expand their empires by force. Let's break down what each of them wanted. For Hitler's Germany, the obsession was Lebensraum, or living space, that he planned to carve out of Eastern Europe. For Mussolini's Italy, it was this grand dream of a new Roman Empire that would control the entire Mediterranean. And for the military leaders in Japan, the goal was brutally practical: seize control of Asia and all its resources. So yeah, different maps, but the exact same violent playbook. And they weren't exactly shy about it. Back in 1936, Mussolini made this incredibly bold declaration. This wasn't just talk. It was a public announcement that a new power center was forming, and it was one that planned to reshape the whole continent on its own terms. And this talk quickly turned into ink on paper. In October 1936, the Rome-Berlin Axis made the German-Italian partnership official. Just 1 month later, Germany and Japan signed the Anti-Comintern Pact, which was basically an alliance against communism. Then, when Italy jumped in the next year, the trio was complete. The Axis was born. But look, these pacts, they weren't just symbolic. The ink was barely dry before one of the partners put this whole aggressive ideology into violent, terrifying action. Let's focus on one specific year, 1937. While Europe is busy signing pacts and making declarations, the war has, for all intents and purposes, already begun in Asia. This year is a massive turning point. This is when Japan goes all in, launching a full-scale invasion of China. Now, this wasn't some border skirmish. This was a brutal war of conquest. Japan was desperate for resources like oil and rubber, and its military leaders genuinely believed it was their nation's destiny to rule over Asia. Theory had just become very bloody practice. Okay, so from here on out, things start moving fast, really fast. Back in Europe, the final agreements are being signed, and these are the ones that make a massive war pretty much inevitable. This is the point of no return. The Pact of Steel. This was a huge shift. The earlier deals, they were mostly political. This was different. This was a blank check for war. Germany and Italy were now officially bound to fight alongside each other. No questions asked. But if the Pact of Steel was a major escalation, the next move was a geopolitical earthquake. An agreement so cynical, so completely unexpected, it just stunned the entire world. An alliance between two powers that were supposed to be mortal enemies. The agreement was the Nazi-Soviet Pact. Now, publicly, it looked like a simple non-aggression treaty. But the real story was in a secret protocol. And its cynicism was just breathtaking. While Hitler and Stalin were promising peace to the world, they were privately getting together to carve up Eastern Europe, with Poland set to be the first victim. So you're probably asking, how on earth could two ideological foes, fascism and communism, do this? The answer comes down to a concept called realpolitik. It's politics with all the morality stripped away. For Hitler, it meant he wouldn't have to fight a war on two fronts. For Stalin, it bought him time and gave him territory. Both leaders put pure, practical, strategic advantage above absolutely everything else. And with that final, cynical pact in place, the last barrier to war in Europe was gone. This is it. This is the final domino falling. For Hitler, the Nazi-Soviet pact was the ultimate green light. He had no fear of an attack from the Soviet Union in the East anymore, so he was totally free to turn his entire military machine west. The invasion of Poland was now just a matter of when, not if. And when that attack finally came, it was with a new and terrifying strategy: Blitzkrieg, or lightning war. This was nothing like the trench warfare of World War I. This was a coordinated, overwhelming onslaught of tanks and aircraft, all designed to create shock and chaos, and to win a war in weeks, not years. The final collapse happened with staggering speed. September 1st, Germany invades Poland. Just 2 days later, Britain and France declare war. And then, only 2 weeks after that, the Soviet Union invades from the east to claim their piece of the pie, just like they agreed to in that secret pact. In a little over 2 weeks, the map of Europe was being violently redrawn. So you see, it wasn't a single cause. It was a clear, deliberate sequence of events. A shared ideology of conquest led to acts of aggression, which were then enabled by these cynical pacts, all leading directly to the first shots of World War II in Europe. And this leaves us with a critical question, one that echoes even today. Looking at this chain of events, you have to ask yourself, when nations decide that their own strategic power is more important than cooperation or peace, is a devastating conflict like this simply unavoidable?